Hello and welcome to week 3. This week we're going to talk about function return values. Sometimes you use a function and it returns a value, and then you have to take that value and use it by the calling code in some way. So that can either be, you can put it as part of an expression, you can make it an argument to another function, or you can print the value. But you can't just call a function that returns a value without using the function that gets returned. So here's an example. I have here int roll equals ctrandom, 1, 6. Ctrandom is a function that returns a random value between the numbers that you give it in the arguments. So this one is going to return a random value between 1 and 6, and it's going to take that value and assign it to roll. So we're getting a value back and we're using that value to assign it to a variable called roll. Here's another example. I'm calling ctcircle and I'm using ctrandom to pick the x and y coordinates of the circle. So the x coordinate will be some random value between 1 and 100. The y coordinate will be some value randomly selected between 1 and 100, and it will be of size 25. So I'm using the result that's passed back by the ctrandom function as an argument to the ctcircle function. Code 12 has some math functions that all return values, so they can all be used. Here are a few of them. They're all described in the reading, but these are some that I'm going to discuss. ctrandom we already saw. There's ctround. That one rounds your value to the closest whole number. ctround decimal will round your value to the closest decimal number. So in the arguments you put how many places you want that decimal number rounded to. ctdistance gives the distance between 2 points. And ctintdiv I talked about in the last lecture. You can do integer division using that one. All of these functions do take arguments, so you need to look them up to see what the arguments are. I have some examples here. Here we've declared x to be 2.345, and I'm going to say I'm going to round x to the nearest whole number. So I define an int called n, and I set it to ctround of x, and that's going to return a value of 2, because 2.345 rounded becomes 2. If I want to round it to the closest decimal place, I can have a variable here I'm calling m. I call ct.roundDecimal. I give it my value x, and I tell it how many places I want. So m will get a value of 2.35 because 2.345 rounds to 2.35. There are also some math functions that are in the Java library. This is a math with a capital M. Those are defined. The code 12 math functions are only defined for code 12. You can't necessarily use those outside of code 12. In Java, though, we do have math functions, and those will be used. You can always use those in Java. Some examples are absolute value. So this would return the absolute value of -3, which would be 3. There's a max that will return the maximum of the two values that you give it as arguments. There's a square root that will give you the square root of the value that you pass. There's other math functions. There's a min, a sine, cosine, tan, pow. Pow gives you a number to a certain power. And there's a whole bunch. And those are also listed in the reading. We have code 12 input functions that also return a value. So if we want to get input in code 12, it's different than in Java. Okay, we have some functions though that we can use for specifically for code 12. So here they are. The first one is input int. That is going to allow you to ask your user to input an integer value. And you use it, you say ct.input, and then you give a message which is the prompt for the user. So that will return the integer value that the user then types in. So if I say, and you have to assign that to something. So if I say int numDonuts equals ct input int, how many donuts would you like? And notice that's in double quotes, my prompt. You'll have a box that comes up. It will have your prompt listed here, and then it will have a box for the user to type in the value. So here we're typing in 12. So the value numDonuts is now going to have a value of 12. If you want to input a floating point number, you would use the function ct.inputNumber, also giving a message. So that's going to return a floating point value, which is of type double. So I can assign a variable here called temp, that's a double, to ct.inputNumber, enter the current temp. A window will come up, it will have your prompt, it will have a space for the user to type in the value. So I've typed in 85.6, so temp now will have a value of 85.6. We also have an input string function, so you can input strings. I would have, say, string name, ct.inputString. I have a prompt, enter your name, and that will come up with a box with the prompt and a space for someone to type in a text string. And that text will be assigned to the variable name. And then the last one is we have something called a function called input yes no, ct.input yes no. That's basically Boolean, so it's going to return a true or a false depending on what the user clicks on. So you'll give a prompt, it'll come up with a box, it'll have your prompt here, and then it's going to have a yes or a no, and the user either clicks on yes or clicks on no. If they click on yes, the function returns true. If they click on no, the function returns false. So flag, which is a Boolean variable, will get either the value true or false. So this is always very good if you want to repeat something in your code, like you're playing a game and you ask the user if they want to play the game again. And then you would test on that flag to decide what to do in your code. Code 12 also has output, which we've seen some of that, but I just wanted to go over it. We have a ct print where you put a value in the parentheses and it will print the result of that value. We have a ct print line, so ct print, it'll just keep printing on the same line. A ct print line, will print on a line and then go to the next line for the next print. Ct log will let you output multiple values on a line separated by commas. So for example, I say ct.log player name hits misses total, and it will then print, say, Susie 5 hits, 1 miss, 6 total. So it will print out the values of those variables separated by commas. You can also use ct-log-m that will print a message first. So here I have area is, and then the area. So this is actually going to print area is, and then it'll print a number, 3.5, whatever circle area value is. So those are the output functions in code 12. And actually, that's pretty much all I have to tell you this week. Your programming assignment is very open-ended. I want you to set your syntax level to 5. Very important. Set it to 5. Read the instructions in the programming assignment, which will tell you exactly what the required elements are. I want you to use a bunch of functions that return values, but you can obviously use what you learned last week as well. You can define variables, you can draw circles and shapes, and then I want you to use some of the functions that we discussed or that are listed. There's a bunch listed in the assignment, and it tells you use at least 2 of these, at least 3 of those. So just read the instructions very carefully to make sure you cover everything in your assignment. And I also want to remind you, when I grade your programs, I often put comments, or your other assignments, I put comments in there. Please make sure to read the comments, because sometimes I'm telling you to do something that you need to remember to do on the next programming assignment. One thing that I noticed some people not doing correctly is naming your folder and your file. So your folders should be named with your last name and the program number. So mine would be, say, Mono Program 1. So I'm going to have a folder that's named Mono Program 1, and then I can name my program Mono Program 1 inside of that folder. And I would like you to make sure that you put all of your code in a folder for each program. So you'll then be able to zip the folder up, and if there are ever multiple files or you need pictures or whatever, you can put all of those into that folder so that the program and everything that you need for it are all together. I think that's all I have for this week. If you have any questions, please email me, and I will have office hours on Thursday on Zoom from 4 to 5 p.m. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you next week.